So hi, my name is Sidharth, and I play guitars for this Mumbai-based band called as Zygnema. We have been around for fairly about 18 plus years. We have like two full-length albums, a few single, and we recently released our EP called Iconic.
Beautiful. Thanks for joining us this afternoon, mate.
Thank you for having us. Uh, it's a pleasure, to do this.
My pleasure is all mine, my friend. So
Yeah.
you mentioned that you've just recently released the five-track EP called Iconic. So how was the reception for it? Was it received as well as you hoped?
Yes, in fact, I think all these years of experience made us take a few steps as musicians and also looking at the evolving music business and the algorithm and how the internet works. It's all about trying to reach out to maximum people so that end of the day, we musicians want our music to be heard. So yeah, I mean, obviously, we did pull in a few things and uh, a bunch of activities helped us to reach out to the right audience and this track called as Grind, we released a music video which is like an anthem for Bombay, and the we're trying to showcase the spirit and resilience of the citizens of the city. uh, it got attention of quite a few popular websites and magazines. We were also mentioned on Metal Hammer as top 12 songs of November, along with Killswitch Engage and a couple of other artists. uh, I mean, it was great. Like we didn't expect it to reach that far, but we just kept pouring in our work and our faith into it, and finally we see results. So now we are pretty kicked about our new stuff that we'll be releasing hopefully end of this year or next year. So yeah, I mean, we're banking on it.
All right. So can you
Yeah.
dive into the EP a little bit deeper musically for us? Like what were you going for with it musically?
So if you have heard our previous albums, if not, no problem, you can check it out whenever you have the time. We were more like a band that was young and raw with influences coming from the old groovy Sepultura and Pantera and Testament.
Mhm.
Uh, that kind of groovy, thrashy stuff. Where we really enjoyed playing that kind of music. So basically, our influences came from there. So our songwriting also revolved around that. So after doing that for like 15 plus years, the band, all three of us felt that, hey, you know what, this is kind of monotonous for us. We are not really adding anything that we have to add as musicians who are learning and evolving. Plus, there is so much culture that is here in India. We can just add a few elements to it and see if it helps us to evolve and change the way we listen to our own music. And yeah, we did that. I mean, it took us like 2 years to experiment with a lot of sound samples, Indian scales and percussions and whatnot. And yeah, I mean, after five solid experiments, we were convinced that, okay, this is what it's going to sound like. So let's get into pre-production. And that's how the entire EP came along. And we were quite happy with the way it's sounding. And now we know, like, if this is the way it's evolving, this is where we are supposed to look into, like, just not play basic pentatonic scales and, try and make riffs, like explore, like, aim for sounds that will excite people, which will give people an oral experience, and then look into coming up with some sort of a message in the song, which might or which will combine this niche community of heavy metal globally.
So did you use traditional Indian instruments through your music?
Yes, I mean, track by track, if you look at it, yeah, we had to program them. Like we didn't hire session musicians per se, like who'll come in and play. But considering we are sitting in 2025 and technology is on everyone's side, so we have MIDI keyboards and bunch of other electronic gadgets to program. So yeah, I mean we were programming Indian sounds, but I mean you need to have basic knowledge on how to program
Yeah, of course.
Indian sounds. So it has to be in a scale, and there are like traditional Carnatic scale coming from down south, which I have been using extensively on the guitar. So it has to fit that sonic space. So like selecting the right notes and then working towards it. So yeah, I mean it took like a couple of weeks for us to get a hang of it, and then once we realized that okay, this is where it's supposed to go. So yeah, I mean we were using traditional sounds and chants per se, And if we couldn't find certain samples, the three of us would just get in front of a mic and do something and try and make sure that the experience is somehow pushed into the song for the audience.
Yeah,
So it was
nice.
quite an interesting process. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, seeing there's only 5 tracks on the EP, mate, I want to run through them all individually, and you can tell us a bit more about the song, what it's about, and a bit more about it musically. So you've got the track "Rise Again."
Right. Yeah. So I can personally tell you I was very, very frustrated with this song because it wasn't going further. We were stuck with just two ideas, and then suddenly one fine day we decided to use some Indian samples. And I said, okay, I'm completely going to stop using Western scale for this song. I'm going to make something in a scale which is called as Pantu Varali Rakshri. It's a Carnatic scale. A lot of flat, flat notes, which makes the scale sound a little dark and like not in a bad way, but it's quite uh, mysteriously dark, and it has some great scope of creating some sort of tension in music. So we started writing music in that scale, and suddenly the entire song fell through in like 2 days. And the solo in that song also is completely out of our comfort zone, where we've never used such scales, so we had to phrase it again and again so that it fits the song. Yes, that is the most traditional we could go, using metal as our primary platform. So then it gave us a sense of idea that okay, if you want to use such traditional elements, we have to learn traditional music more. So that is what we are doing quietly in the background right now. That okay, to be able to express more freely, like it shouldn't feel forced. It has to come naturally.
Yeah.
So Rise Again was that track, where I personally realized, okay, being just a single guitar player, I have to learn more of these traditional elements in a much more disciplined manner, so that it becomes a lot more convenient for us to use them like subconsciously.
Yeah, very nice. Okay, and then you've got "To Reach the Gods."
Yeah. So that track wasn't even supposed to be on this EP. I mean, there was a healthy debate amongst the band members. Like, yeah, I mean, that track is jumpy and groovy. It's nice. One of the members said like, hey, it sounds like a music, sounds like a song that can be played only in the car, while you're driving, so that the person doesn't fall asleep. I mean, everybody had their own 2 cent, and we were trying to be funny about it. But eventually, when we heard the entire EP with that track, we were like, you know what? I feel it's one of the most appealing tracks, and it's going to kick ass live. And it did. When we played a couple of shows here in India, and we played that track live, we could see the entire venue, all the audience jumping with us on the groove,
Nice.
like on the beat. So I was like, I mean, this is what we are supposed to do with music. Like it has to connect. Like whether it's when you're listening to it on your headphones or your speakers, or you're at the this track has got nothing Indian, but it's just basically use a bunch of cellos and violins and other samples to make it sound more daunting per se. Because lyrically, this song speaks about how a human mind is never satisfied with just one thing. Like just a common man in general achieves something like hey, I want to buy my first car. He buys his first car. Great. Then he's like, I want to buy my first house. Great. Then the requirement of growing never stops. And I mean, there are people at different stratas who do bunch of things to achieve so-called success in their mind. So it never stops. It's until you reach the gods. You want more power, you want more money, you want more everything. Like so, I said if that is the title of the track, then it has to have some sort of like proper darkness in it, and we could get that only through the cellos and other things that we programmed. And it was more like orchestrated. Some parts were written on the guitar, but I had to let go because it sounded better on something else. End of the day, it had to be a song that combines everything and makes the listener want more. So that is the story about To Reach the Gods.
Nice. Then we move on to "Grind."
Yes, Grind was completely different. Many riffs were rejected, many parts that we used to keep like bouncing ideas with each other, kept, it's like, you're playing ping pong with each other. Then suddenly, one fine day, I just got really frustrated and I said, okay, let me just try using the whammy bar on the guitar. And I just kept digging it harder. And then suddenly caught the groove. I'm like, okay, shit, this sounds interesting. Like, I just sent it to the boys and they were like, you know what, we have something new. Like, we stick with this. It doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be a fancy riff or something. Like, we just want something that sounds great. Sonically it has to appeal. And that is where the entire structure for grind changed. And then the folk elements for from our state, like, Maharashtra is very uh, rich in culture when it comes to history and everything. And we have certain folk elements through voice, through chants and whatnot, which were very easily achievable, and we managed to do it. And certain sounds of wind instruments that we have in our state, we couldn't get that, so we managed to just tweak it using a couple of instruments, just combine them with the help of technology, and it came very close to what we wanted it to sound like, at least in our minds. And when the entire track came together, it was purely emotional because it reminds us of the city where we grew up in, and we were like, we've been hearing these sounds since we existed, like, 35, 40 years. And we see the entire city celebrate together every time, like, doesn't matter, even if you're a stranger. So we said, this city is about just grinding it out 24 by 7, like, relentless. And then we said, what, this track is called Grind because it's about our city, it's about Mumbai, and it represents the sound as well.
Yeah, very nice. Then we've got Choco Slam. I like the title.
Well, it was a working title, and our singer Jimmy, he was like, what, like, screw having intense titles. I want the title to be Choco Slam. In fact, I had named it as Choke Slam. Choke Slam is nothing but a WWF move that your Undertaker or your Kane, they used to perform. Yeah, it was just something like that because the breakdown riff sounded so heavy. I mean, like, it's so powerful. It's supposed to be. It'll go on a choke slam, on any wrestling move, in a very gimmicky way. And they were like, hey, you know what? That's a good title. So that was a working title. But then somebody misspelled it and it became Choco Slam. And they were like, no, this is the title. Like, okay, great. Yeah, but the song, the lyrics speaks completely about different things. It's about Chinese whisper, like, how somebody plants an idea in your head and you start becoming your own enemy with your own achievements. It's like self-sabotaging your own vision or your own life.
We've all
So
been there.
lyrically, it speaks. Yeah, absolutely. We have been all in that spot. So again, traditional elements, not really, but mainly the intro of the song, which has heavy percussions, and we wanted it to be very, very Indianized, but not mainly towards Maharashtra and South. That was our imagination. Yeah, we managed to get some sort of heavy drums going on in a bunch of spots, and the guy who recorded bass on this EP also, he was like, he got so much pocket to play slap pop. I was like, dude, this just completely changed the sound of the track, and it's for the best. We didn't. He said, okay, you guys play metal, I'm going to play funk, and let's see how it combines. So then it's a mix of everything. We just wanted it to be an enjoyable experience, and the moment it enters the breakdown, everything just hits you like a choke slam, and you're like, wow, this is it. First track, first half is fun, dance elements, whatever. Then go straight into brutal slam metal and end the song. That's how it flows.
Very nice. And then you've got the final track, which is the title track, Iconic.
Yeah, again, iconic. We started working on this uh, right before the pandemic hit. We entered our jam rooms and we were like, guys, we are just bored of the same old stuff. Let's start writing something different. And nothing was clicking. And I just played something out of irritation. And I said, do you guys want me to play something like this? And both of them nodded. They're like, yes. The intro of the song is the sound came out of pure irritation, nothing else. And they were like, okay, that sounds great. Now we can phrase it. And then we phrased it. I'm like, okay, shit, this is actually fun. And as we progressed, it took us some time to come up with the chorus because we had to have a very, very catchy chorus because the name of the track was iconic. So the chorus had to be iconic. It had to be layered. It had to have something that makes us feel happy when we hear and play the track. And I think somewhere it did. And then I said, okay, this is going to be the beginning of where we start using something Indian. So the outro solo is also on a Carnatic scale. Uh, and that is where I started feeling a lot more confident that you can have these small embellishments of Indian scales. It doesn't have to be overpowering, but it can just have its space. It comes and goes for like a few bars, and so that people want to go back to it and spin it a little, give it a little more try. And to our surprise, yes, we did receive a couple of messages, and people walked up to us and said, that little bit of Indian scale in the end was quite unexpected. It was great. And even in Rise Now, people came back and said, the Indian solo and the elements were quite different. It was quite great. So people are accepting, that I personally was scared that, a lot of elite metalheads would completely cancel this album saying, hey, you're not the same old Zygnema anymore. We have been watching you all for like 15 years and this is not the Zygnema we liked. But to our surprise, it changed and everyone was like, dude, it's so refreshing. I mean, you guys still have the same old groove and power, and there are so many new things to look forward to. And we were like, okay, this is quite convincing, and we shall look in the right direction from now on and keep creating newer experiences. So that's how Iconic helped us to frame the entire idea and vision for this EP.
Nice. So do you think you'll continue experimenting for the next album, or you'll sort of stick more towards what you come up with for Iconic?
We have already begun work and it's purely experimental. We know that certain sounds are working. We cannot let go of the groove that is very essential, because if there is no groove, I mean, it's not metal, at least for us. And if you can't move to it, I mean, our music has to make people go crazy, in the sense, even if, now the new album, one guy, he sent us a screenshot of a track that he completed. He completed 17 kilometers of bicycling in a day. And he said, I was constantly running your EP while I was using my bicycle. I'm like, wow, if that is what's going to help you, why not? The other guy sent us his workout rep in the gym, where he's doing 100 kilos deadlifts and, biceps. And he's like, I'm hitting the gym after ages, using Zygnema's new EP, whatever. It can encourages them to do whatever they love doing the most. So if that is how it's connecting with people to, deliver their personal best, I think we want to deliver our personal best and not uh, stick to the older formulas, like a little bit, yes, but there has to be something new. We want to evolve as musicians and creators. We want to bring new stuff to the table, so that when anyone looks back, like, what was different about Iconic? This is what we did. What was different after Iconic? This is what it is. So, it's a straight up no nonsense, no brainer sound right in front of you, that they kept evolving and they kept experimenting. That is when it's music, it's art. So we
Nice.
want to keep going at it that way. Yeah.
Nice. So just say hypothetically someone stumbled across this interview and they've never heard of you guys before. What's 3 songs that they should listen to from your whole catalogue to sort of get to know the band a bit better?
I will let the people decide for themselves. Like, the first album is Born of Unity. Yes, that was extremely raw. We were just 21, 22, very young back then. And I still take pride in that album, because we never expected to be from India to have a metal album. You produce your album completely by yourself and release it. And then you get to take that album on global stages. Right? It was complete dream come true. So that was like our first step. So if they want to start there, yes, they can start. But I genuinely feel that the 3 tracks that actually connects with the people. Firstly, the track is from the debut album called as Theory of Lies and Negation. The second track that we feel defines our journey as metalheads is the Phoenix Effect from the second album. And I will genuinely urge people to hear the entire EP of Iconic because all 5 songs are different from each other. I mean, yes, Grind has its own experience. Our personal favorite is Choco Slam as well. If you ask us to pick between Iconic and Rise now, we can't pick because when you play Iconic live, you just see a massive wall of death happening because the way the song enters, people just lose their shit. And we would like to see that happen on global stages as well when we start touring again later this year or next year. So it has to start with one song, and eventually, I think once you start falling in love with the sound, you know, you you start exploring everything else. That's how we discovered Metallica, Black Sabbath. We were not born in the 70s. We had to go back in time to understand what the origin of these um influences were like. Like if you'll ask us, like we've had multiple influences as musicians. Like I have grown up listening to Pantera a lot, but as you mature as musicians, I fell in love with Meshuggah real hard, like because they're something else. They're something else. Like they just crafted something else. Like I've enjoyed listening to all the metal bands, Testament, Slayer, Lamb of God, Anthrax. Like all of them are amazing. But what Meshuggah did to the world is completely different. They changed the entire design of metal. Then the sale of 7 and 8 string guitars multiplied across the globe. Like now everybody wants to sound like Meshuggah.
100%. All right, brother. Well, thanks very much for your
So
time. It's been a pleasure speaking with you and getting to know you. The album Iconic is out
likewise,
now, and she's a cracker. So best of luck with everything, brother, and we'll talk to you again in the future.
thank you.